You know, I still get chills thinking back to that afternoon in Willow Creek. This little town tucked away in the Midwest where everything looks picture perfect on the surface, kids riding bikes, folks waving from porches, but underneath, man, there's this undercurrent of trouble that nobody talks about, especially when it comes to the kids like my niece Lily, who was just 14 at the time, walking home from school with her backpack slung over one shoulder, trying to blend into the shadows. Because those older teens had been on her case for weeks now, calling her a runt and shoving her around like she was nothing. It started small. You see, Lily's mom, my sister Sarah, was a single mom scraping by at the local coffee shop after her husband passed in a car wreck a couple years back. And Lily, bless her, she wore those thrift store clothes without complaint. But these bullies, led by this punk named Derek, whose dad owned half the strip mall and thought that gave his kid license to act like a king, they targeted her because she aced every test, made them look bad in class. And yeah, there was this old grudge, too, since Derek's family had tried to buy out Sarah's tiny rental house for some development scheme, and Sarah told him to shove it. So it all boiled over into this personal vendetta against Lily, like hurting the kid would settle the score. That day, the sun was dipping low, casting long shadows on the cracked sidewalk near the old mill, and Lily spotted them ahead, Derek and his two sidekicks, leaning against a fence, smirks twisting their faces as they blocked her path, one of them snatching her backpack strap and yanking it hard, spinning her around while Derek leaned in close, his breath hot and mean, sneering. Were you rushing off to, runt? Gonna go cry to mommy about how life's not fair? And Lily, her heart pounding like a drum, whispered back, just let me go, please. But they laughed, circling tighter, their shadows swallowing her up, and she thought about running, but knew they'd chase her down, make it worse, because nobody ever stepped in, not the neighbors peeking from behind curtains, not anyone, until that low rumble started, faint at first like distant thunder, but growing, vibrating through the ground, shaking the leaves off the trees. And that's when it hit, headlights piercing the dusk, dozens of engines roaring like a storm rolling in, and suddenly there they were, about 40 Thunder Riders, this biker crew from the outskirts of town, their chrome gleaming under the streetlights as they formed a tight circle around Lily, cutting off the bullies like a wall of steel and leather. And man, the look on Derek's face, that cocky grin melting into pure shock as the lead rider, this guy Jax Harlan with his weathered jacket and sharp eyes, killed his engine, swung off his bike, and stepped forward, his voice steady but edged like a knife. You boys think picking on a kid makes you tough? Cornering her like wolves because your egos can't handle a smart girl showing you up? And Derek shuffled back, mumbling, we were just messing around, no big deal. But Jax didn't buy it, his gaze locking on him, and behind him the riders sat silent. Engines idling low, their presence alone enough to make the air thick with tension, while Lily stood there trembling, clutching her bag, tears stinging her eyes, but feeling this weird spark of safety for the first time. Jax crouched down a bit, his tone softening just for her. You okay, kiddo? And she nodded shakily, whispering a thank you that barely came out. And then he turned back to the bullies, signaling one of his guys to block their escape, gravel crunching under boots as the rider growled, apologize, and make it mean something. And oh, the way they squirmed, Derek kicking at the dirt, finally muttering, sorry, whatever. But Jax pressed, louder, and look her in the eye. Does she look like she's laughing at your jokes? And they did, stammering apologies that hung awkward in the air, their bravado shattered, before Jax waved his hand, and the engines revved up in unison, a deafening roar that drowned out everything, not to scare Lily, but to wash away the cruelty. And just like that, the riders escorted her home, bikes flanking her like guardians. The whole town staring from windows as this tiny girl walked tall in the middle of it all, her steps syncing with the thunder. And when they reached her doorstep, Jax dismounted again, tipping his helmet with a nod. No one walks alone if they don't have to, especially not you. Leaving Sarah standing there in her apron, mouth agape, pulling Lily into a hug as the bikes faded into the night, red taillights glowing like embers. But it didn't stop there. You know, it rippled through Willow Creek like a stone in a pond, stirring up all kinds of mess. Because Sarah, she was wrecked that night, tucking Lily in and standing by the window, thinking about how she'd been so buried in double shifts to keep the roof over their heads that she'd missed the signs, the bruises on Lily's arms from those accidents. And now these bikers, these so-called outlaws the town whispered about, had stepped in where everyone else failed, filling that void left by her husband, but not without backlash. Onuv next morning at the coffee shop. Folks buzzed, some saying, those Thunder Riders are just thugs looking for trouble, probably got their own agenda. Tying it back to how Jax's crew had clashed with Derek's dad over some land dispute years ago, where the strip mall expansion nearly bulldozed the bikers' old hangout spot. So yeah, there was history there. This undercurrent of community grudges where the rich folks like Derek's family pulled strings with the HOA to push out anyone who didn't fit their shiny image, and the Riders. They pushed back, not with words but with presence, like when Sarah left work that evening and spotted 3 bikes idling nearby, not following her, just watching until she and Lily got inside safe. A quiet promise that made her feel less alone but stirred the pot even more. At the town meeting that week, voices clashed. Old Mr. Harlan, no relation to Jax, but just as cranky, barking, "We don't need vigilantes patrolling our streets, turning this into some Wild West show." And Sarah sat in the back, gripping Lily's hand, her heart twisting because she hated seeing the fear still lingering in her daughter's eyes. But then a young dad stood up, countering. "And where were we when that girl got cornered? Hiding behind our curtains? At least someone's got the guts." And the room went quiet, heavy with that truth. And afterward, Jax was waiting outside, leaning on his bike, helmet under his arm, asking softly, "How's she doing?" And Sarah, voice cracking, replied, "Better, thanks to you." "Why her, though? Why step in now?" And he just shrugged, eyes distant. "Because I had a sister once, lost her to crap like this. Bullies who thought they owned the world, and no one deserves that fight alone, not in our backyard." Revealing this personal scar that made it all click. His crew's creed born from pain, not just rebellion. Things escalated from there, building this tension that felt like a slow bun. Lily started changing, walking to school with her head up, shoulders straight, and at recess, kids who'd ignored her before now whispered in awe, "Is it true? Did the Riders really show up for you?" And she'd nod, blushing but proud, the runt label fading like old ink. But Derek and his crew, they didn't back off easy, driven by that ego bruise and their dad's pressure to stand their ground, like it was some twisted lesson in power. So one dusk near the park, they cornered her again, circling with sharper taunts, Derek hissing, "Think your biker buddies make you special now? You're still nothing." And Lily, voice trembling but stronger, shot back, "Leave me alone, you're the ones acting small," which only fueled their anger. But then that rumble hit again, engines from both ends of the street. The Riders pouring in, headlights slicing the twilight, forming that unbreakable wall. And Jax didn't even get off his bike this time, just raised his hand, and 40 engines revved as one, the sound so fierce it rattled windows, making Derek and his pals stumble back pale as ghosts, fleeing into the shadows with tails between their legs. And Jax called over the roar, "Keep walking, Kitty, tougher than you know," leaving Lily exhaling in relief, tears of strength now, not fear, as she realized she wasn't just surviving anymore. She was standing taller, the town's whispers shifting too, some folks at the coffee shop leaving extra tips for Sarah with notes saying for Lily, the brave one, while others grumbled about intimidation tactics. But it all came to a head at the Willow Creek Summer Fair, booths buzzing with laughter, cotton candy in the air, Lily clutching a lemonade beside Sarah, trying to enjoy the normalcy. When Derek's voice cut through, loud and mocking for the crowd, "Hey everyone, look, it's the biker's little pet," thinking she's hot stuff now. And the humiliation hit Lily like a wave, freezing her as they circled, feeding off the silence of onlookers who'd rather pretend not to see. Sarah's hand shaking on her shoulder, torn between fury and helplessness because this wasn't just private cruelty anymore. It was a public spectacle meant to break her daughter for good, rooted in that land grab. Resentment where Derek's family saw Sarah's refusal as a slap to their control. But then boom, distant thunder grew, shaking the fairgrounds, food carts vibrating as chrome flashed at the end of Main Street. The Thunder Riders rolling in 2 by 2, engines growling like a beast awakening, forming a line that commanded the square, and Jax dismounted slow, his eyes scanning until they locked on Lily. Then shifting to Derek with a blade-sharp stare, voice carrying low but piercing. Didn't learn your lesson, huh? Jokes that scar a kid, make her afraid to breathe. That's not funny. That's cowardice. And the crowd stirred, shame rippling through as Derek stammered. We were just kidding around. But Jack stepped closer, every word deliberate. Kidding doesn't leave bruises, doesn't steal a childhood. Look around. Willow Creek. This is what happens when we all look away. Forcing the town to confront its own indifference. The bullies' faces draining white as they bolted, swallowed by the side streets. And instead of leaving, Jax turned to Lily, crouching eye level. You good? And she nodded, voice steady. I'm not scared anymore. Sparking hesitant applause that built into cheers, even the mayor nodding stiffly from the sidelines, and Jax raised his hand, the riders revving in a triumphant roar that rolled like a victory hymn, Lily's chest swelling with pride as the name, Runt, burned away for good, the town finally seeing her not as a victim, but as someone worth cheering for. In the weeks after, Willow Creek changed in ways you could feel. Lily no longer ate lunch alone at school. Kids inviting her over like she was one of them. Teachers noting her confidence, chin up, eyes forward. And Sarah, she felt empowered too. Customers at the shop slipping her notes of solidarity. And one night, when she closed up late, headlights swept the lot. Derek's crew in their beat-up truck revving close, laughing menacingly, inching forward in a last-ditch power play tied to their family's fading grip on the town. But then the deep growl of bikes flooded in, dozens boxing them in. Jack sat, the front barking. This ends now, get out and face her, forcing apologies that shook from their lips as Sarah met their eyes with fire. Stay away from my daughter, or deal with the consequences. And the riders roared in salute, windows rattling, leaving Sarah not just grateful, but fierce, because loyalty had handed her back her voice. The riders even invited Lily to their clubhouse one weekend. Sarah hesitated at first, instincts flaring, but Jax assured her, she's safe here, honored. And it was true. No chaos, just stories and laughter. Her sketch of bikes circling a girl framed on the wall with the word family stitched below. Jax murmuring, you gave her that strength. We just reminded her. And as they escorted them home, Lily whispered, Mom, they make me feel big, bringing tears to Sarah's eyes, realizing she wasn't raising her alone anymore. Come the fall festival parade, the biggest event around, floats and crowds lining the streets. The cheers peaked when the riders rolled through. Lily perched proud on Jax's bike, gripping the bars as the town erupted, clapping for the girl they'd once overlooked. Derek's crew skulking in the back, silent and pale, the roar washing over everything like justice served. And months later, on a golden evening, Lily walked home easy, no fear in the shadows, fingering a leather patch in her pocket. Marked kin, smiling as faint thunder echoed in the distance, a steady reassurance that she'd never be small again. It's funny how a story like this sticks with you. Makes you question things. Were the Thunder Riders heroes, or just stirring up more trouble by taking the law into their own hands? Did the town really change, or was it all surface level, waiting for the next grudge to flare? What do you think? Is vigilante justice ever right when the system fails kids like Lily? Or does it just breed more chaos in communities already divided by money and power? Drop a comment below, share your take on it. Maybe even a story from your own town. And if this hit home, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so we can keep diving into these real-life tales of grit and unexpected turns together.